Hey, what's up guys? Drew here over at RevHiker Outdoors, and welcome to another episode of Knife Thursday. Today I'm going to tackle a subject that, well, this is more of an opinion piece because everybody's got a different opinion on what the best EDC knife ever is. I want to start out not by naming what my favorite is or what I think the best is, but first by talking what things I look at for a good EDC knife. So I'm just going to start out there, and maybe based on these things, if you're looking for a really good one, you can maybe look at some of these things and rank them on what you think is most important. But for me, this is what I think is most important for an EDC knife. Number one, it has to be able to do everything. And I know that's kind of like a weird, requirement. It's got to be able to do everything. What I mean by that is the blade has to be able to, it has to be a shape to where it can pretty much handle any task. So it's got to have some belly. I wouldn't choose like a Warncliffe or a cleaver for my perfect EDC because there's no belly. The blade is just totally straight. All the cutting edge is straight, and there's no curve, there's no belly. To me, I really need that because a lot of cutting tasks do better with a belly. And you know, if you're cutting at an angle, having a belly is just better because you can rock the blade back and forth, and it just gives you more cutting surface, and you really need a belly for a lot of tasks that you do. So it's got to have belly so it can perform a lot of those tasks. And also when it has to do everything, it needs to be able to do everything that I do. So I hunt. I do normal everyday stuff, cutting ropes, cutting zip ties, cutting open packages. That's all like really easy stuff that most knives can do. But I want it to be able to go hunting with me. I want it to be light enough to where it can go hiking with me, that it's not like cumbersome in my pocket. So it's got to be able to kind of perform a range of tasks, anything I would do hiking. So it's got to be able to carve well. It's got to be pretty sturdy so that I could, do some stabbing stuff with it. My favorite EDC knife, I've cut in entire rooms of carpet. I didn't have a razor blade on me, so this thing cut carpet all day, and I cut in all the edges and all that stuff. So it's got to be able to do a wide variety of things, and blade shape has a lot to do with that. So my first requirement is it's got to be able to fulfill anything that I might do in a given day. The second requirement for me is it's got to be strong. I said that it needed to be light, but I don't want a knife that sacrifices strength when it's light. So the ideal one that I have in my head, I'm not going to reveal it yet, but so let me take for example some other blades that a lot of people like for everyday carry, like a Spyderco Delica or a Spyderco Manix or a Paramilitary 2. Those are some really popular ones. You guys know that I run a sharpening thing, so I've seen just about every knife there is, and when I sharpen Spydercos on the wicked edge, every time you watch that blade just flex side to side on every pass, even when you're barely using any weight. So for me, Spydercos are all out because they're really thin. Most of them are flat ground, and up near the tip they're just super thin and weak. And I've had a lot of Spydercos come in that people want sharpened, and the tips are bent or snapped off, and I have to fix a lot of them. So the knife has to be strong, particularly the blade. I want a thick enough blade to where it's strong, but thin enough to where it can still slice nicely if I'm cutting up food or doing something like that. I don't want some big, bulky, 1/8 inch thick, 1/4 inch thick, some ridiculous thing. I don't want some big honking pry bar with a somewhat sharp edge, but I still want it to be sharp. So it's got to do everything that I want it to do. It's got to be able to perform all those tasks. It's got to be strong, but still lightweight. And it's got to fit well in my pocket. It's got to carry well. That'd be number 3 for me. Some knives that I've had, you reach into your pocket and it's always smacking into your fingers, and it's kind of bulky, and or the clip is kind of funky and it rides a little like angled in your pocket. I want a knife with a clip that's just straight down, and that the blade just straight down in the back side of my pocket, so I can still put my hand in my pocket and not have to worry about any of that stuff. So it's got to carry well, and I don't want it always like making a big bulge in my pocket. I don't want it getting in my way, essentially. That really drives me nuts. I've got some bigger knives that are still thin profiled that fit great in my pocket. So for example, like the Benchmade Contigo, this is a pretty big knife. However, it's thin this way and it still rides in my pocket fine, and I don't have to worry about this thing getting in the way. I've had smaller knives that were bulkier and they got in my way and I didn't like them and I got rid of them. So it's got to cut all the stuff that I want to cut. It's got to be strong and still light. It's got to fit in my pocket. It's got to be comfortable in hand, because an EDC knife is one that I'm using all the time. I don't want a knife that's so small that I'm only getting 3 fingers on there. So like, here's the Benchmade Proper. This is a great knife. I love this, but for my hands, I mean, I can make it a 4-finger blade, but it's more like 3 if I'm up in the choil. You know, I wear like an extra large glove, but this is really on the small side for me. So for an ideal everyday carry, I would need it to be full 4 fingers on there if I really got a romp on something. This could make it, but it's a little bit small. This is a great backup blade, and that's how I mostly carry it. It's the only times I might carry it as my primary blade is maybe at church or something like that, but a lot of times this gets thrown in my watch pocket and just kind of hangs out there, and I bring it out for light duty stuff. So the blade has to be big enough to fit my hand. I want to be able to grab a whole handful of handle when I really want to cut on something. And those, oh, and probably the last thing that I want is I want a good warranty, because my knives get used. There's very few that I really go gently on. I just use the knife. I don't beat it up, I don't throw it around, I don't kick it around, but I do use it, and I cut hard and I push hard on stuff, and I want it to be able to cut, and I don't want to have to worry about it. And if it does break, I want to be able to just send it in and have them replace it, take care of it, fix it, whatever they got to do, because I just want my knife to work all the time and not take a break. And lastly, it needs to be open and closed with one hand. You know, for a primary blade, this Proper is great, but it's really a two-handed knife. Definitely to open. You can close it on your leg and just push it against your leg and close it with one hand. But you know, there's so many times where I'm holding something and I want to be able to just pull my knife out of my pocket, open it, cut what I got to cut, close it, and put it back in my pocket with only using one hand. So, all that being said, I have tried out every lock there is. I've tried out triad lock, I've tried out compression lock, liner lock, frame lock, axis lock. I've pretty much owned them all. I've used the ball lock that Spyderco uses, that's similar to the axis lock. I've really used just about every type out there, and for me, the knife that has come out on top that can cut everything I need to cut, it can hunt with me, it can gut animals, it can skin animals, it can open my envelopes, it can cut in carpet. It's very strong, because I've used the thing, I've used the butt of it as a hammer. I've really just cut hard on this thing. You name it. I mean, everything that I talked about, to me, this knife fits perfectly. And that knife is the Benchmade 940, and let me show it to you. It's right here. I lost mine. So I was planning on making this video, and I lost my Benchmade 940, and I've been looking for it for days now, and I cannot find it. So this video is partially what I think the best EDC blade out there is. It ticks off every one of those boxes easily. But it's also a bit of a tribute. I think this knife is, you know, in the EDC Hall of Fame. If you're a knife guy and you know about knives and you know about some EDC stuff, You've probably heard of the 940. You might have had a 940. And I mean, I've rarely ever come across a knife guy that's owned a 940. I was like, meh, wasn't my thing. There are a few out there. There are a few hardcore fanboys for certain brands, and they just won't recognize that another knife is good. So I've come across those people, and there's people that it isn't for everybody. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit their taste, or they have a different use of their knives, and they like something else better. But just about anybody that's reasonable can respect how good the 940 is and how well it fits just about every situation. So, you know, like I said, for me, the best EDC knife of all time is a 940. And I'm really sad that I lost mine because it was my favorite knife. I carried it constantly. It's gone everywhere with me. You know, just I've had it for a long time. And I'm also sad because now I have to buy another one because I have to. It's that good of a knife. I know it's not cheap, but it's one of those knives where it's definitely something that you replace. There are certain knives that I've bought, and if I lost them, I'd be sad, but I wouldn't go out and replace it. The 940 is not one of those. I would absolutely replace that blade every time I lost it. I think if you guys know who Wrangler Star is, he lost his 940 like 3 or 4 different times, and he kept replacing it with 940s because it's such a good knife. You know, there are certain things where I think the hype is way bigger than the product. I think the Benchmade 940 is one of those things where it lives up to the hype. A lot of people talk about it because it's just that good. Anyway, guys, I know this was kind of like a weak reveal because I lost mine. I'm really sad about that, and everybody said, "Aw." But anyway, I'll end up getting another one sometime down the road. I'll save up for one and I'll snag one. But I do want to let you guys know about some future stuff that I've got coming up for Knife Thursday. So the EDC portion of this is over. This is some future stuff that I'm going to talk about. I've been talking with a friend of mine through Instagram who works for an outdoors type store. They sell some outdoor stuff, but mostly knives. And I've kind of worked out a deal with them where they're going to send me knives to review, and then I send them back. So I'm going to have a bunch of fresh material for you guys. They're going to let me keep the knives for a good amount of time before I send them back so that I can really get a good feel for them. So those should be starting next week, and I'll let you guys know all about that in next week's episode of Knife Thursday. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. God bless you guys as always, and please in the comments below let me know what your favorite EDC knife is, the one that you think is best and fits your needs perfectly. If you've got a favorite, go ahead and throw it in the comments. God bless, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.